And as I walk off into the city streets, a final word to the men and women of the Reagan Revolution, the men and women across America who for 8 years did the work that brought America back. My friends, we did it. We weren't just marking time, we made a difference. We made the city stronger, we made the city freer, and we left her in good hands. All in all, not bad. Not bad at all. And so, goodbye, God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Hi, I'm Melissa, and welcome to this month's live from at the Reagan Library. Remember, we do these on the first Wednesday of every month. Now, of course, as you know, today is June 5th, 2024, and today marks the 20th anniversary of the passing of Ronald Reagan. Tomorrow, of course, being June 6, 2024, which marks the 80th anniversary of D-Day. And it also marks the 40th anniversary of President Reagan's speech on the 40th anniversary of D-Day on June 6, 1984, which is one of his most famous speeches. So in today's live from, we're going to talk about what we're doing here at the Ronald Reagan Presidential Foundation and Institute to mark these two historically significant events. I am standing outside right next to the event site, so if you hear noise and construction and yelling, ignore it all. And I am going to engage with all of you like we've been doing. So if you're watching live on LinkedIn or Facebook or YouTube, please go to that comment section, put in your name and say hello so I can say hi to you, or ask a question about what we're doing here or a question about Ronald Reagan. I'll do my best to answer that. We're going to be going to the screens many times throughout this entire program. In fact, I'm going really soon, so please go to that comment box, put in your name and where you're watching so I can say hi. So why are we holding these two events? Well, President Reagan profoundly redefined the fabric of American society. He fostered an era marked by unparalleled economic opportunity, a resurgence of national pride, and an unparalleled commitment to peace through strength. His legacy is characterized by a spirited advocacy of freedom, democracy, and individual liberty. And he continues to guide us and inspire us on global leadership and policymaking long after he left office. So before we start talking about what we're doing here specifically today, I'd like to go to those screens. So again, if you're watching, go to that comment box while I grab my glasses here and put them on. I'd love to say hello to you. So let's see, do we have anyone? We have Jonathan Provost, thank you so much for watching. We have our friend Rogi from Japan, thank you for always tuning in. We have Shauna from Moore Park, thank you so much. You're all watching on, I believe that's YouTube. We have Jeff Willis on LinkedIn, thank you so much for watching on LinkedIn, we really appreciate it. I don't see any comments on Facebook yet, but we are going to keep going back to these screens, so please do go say hi or ask a question. Saul, thank you for watching. We love his speeches too. Alexander from Brazil, that is incredible. Thank you so much for tuning in. We really appreciate it. Like I said, I'm going to go back to those screens really shortly. So please keep adding your names, your questions, say hi to me so I can say hi to you. So let's go back to today, June 5th. 20 years ago on June 5th, 2004, at the age of 93, with his family by his side, President Reagan passed away. So to sort of bring us into the mood of the day, the spirit of the day, we're going to go to an excerpt of the eulogy that his daughter, Patty Davis, said at his funeral.
And as I walk off into the city streets,
my father never feared death. He never saw it as an ending. When I was a child, he took me out into a field at our ranch after one of the Malibu fires had swept through. I was very small and the field looked huge and lifeless, but he bent down and showed me how tiny new green shoots were peeking up out of the ashes just weeks after the fire had come through. You see, he said, new life always comes out of death. It looks like nothing could ever grow in this field again, but things do. And even though it sometimes seemed a mystery, we were just asked to trust that God's time was right and wise. I don't know why Alzheimer's was allowed to steal so much of my father, before releasing him into the arms of death. But I know that at his last moment, when he opened his eyes that had not opened for many, many days, and looked at my mother, he showed us that neither disease nor death can conquer love.
So thank you for staying with us and watching that. Such a beautiful eulogy. So what are we doing here at the Reagan Library to commemorate the 20th anniversary of President Reagan's passing? Of course, we do honor him every day here at the Reagan Library, but today specifically, we are holding a day-long program. It is a ticketed event, so it's too late to actually buy a ticket and attend, but we are streaming the entire day on our YouTube channel. So youtube.com/Reagan Foundation. We really encourage you, if you find yourself with some time, to go log on and watch different portions of the day. Again, youtube.com/Reagan Foundation. The day begins at 3:30 p.m. Pacific with live music from a military band. And then at 4 o'clock, we're going to hold a really special ceremony. The ceremony includes music by the same bagpiper who played at President Reagan's funeral, Pipe Major Bill Bedecker. We have a wreath laying with members of the Reagan family here on President Reagan's gravesite, which is behind me. We have an honor guard. We have music from America's Got Talent's Voices of Service Choir. We have an invocation from the Reverend from the church that President and Mrs. Reagan attended when they lived in Bel Air. It's going to be a really moving and touching about 30 minutes. There's also a rifle guard. So again, that is from 4 p.m. to 4:30 p.m. Pacific. From there, we're going to go into two different panels, one that focuses more on President Reagan's domestic policy, one that focuses more on President Reagan's foreign policy. Both panels will deal with and talk about the policies and initiatives from the Reagan era and how they still impact us today. And both panels are filled with Reagan administration officials and scholars. They're sure to be very interesting, entertaining, and we'll learn a lot from those who actually worked with President Reagan in the 80s. We will then take a short break from the live stream for us to move our guests to dinner. But we are going to conclude the evening with something I've been looking forward to for months since we booked this. We're going to conclude the evening, it's late if you're not California time, so I'm sorry, probably around 8 to 9 p.m. Pacific. We are going to have a on-stage fireside chat with two children of President Reagan's closest allies and closest friends. Of course, President Reagan was so close to Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher, and her daughter Carol is here. And of course, he was so close as well to Canadian Prime Minister Brian Mulroney, who just passed away. His son Ben is here. Ben and Carol will sit on stage in conversation with Pulitzer Prize winning columnist Peggy Noonan. We don't think Ben or Carol have ever shared a stage before. And in talking with them leading up to this program, and they've been sharing some of the stories they're going to share with all of you today. They're moving, they're touching, they're funny. We can't wait to share that program with you. So again, for all the programs today, reaganfoundation.org, youtube.com/Reagan Foundation. And just to sort of bring into the spirit of the Mulroney and Thatcher and Ronald Reagan relationships, we're going to go now to brief excerpts from Margaret Thatcher and Brian Mulroney's eulogies for President Reagan's funeral.
I have been truly blessed to have been a friend of Ronald Reagan. I am grateful that our paths crossed and that our lives touched. I shall always remember him with the deepest admiration and affection, and I will always feel honored by the journey that we traveled together in search of better and more peaceful tomorrows for all God's children everywhere.
And as the last journey of this faithful pilgrim took him beyond the sunset, and as heaven's morning broke, I like to think, in the words of Bunyan, that all the trumpets sounded on the other side. We here still move in twilight, but we have one beacon to guide us that Ronald Reagan never had. We have his example. Let us give thanks today for a life that achieved so much for all of God's children.
So my glasses are on. That must mean I'm going to go to the screen. So please go to that comment box, say hello. On YouTube, I see that John Highbush is watching. That means the world to me. John is the former executive director of the Reagan Foundation. He's a guest for our events tonight. I can't wait to see you, John, and give you a hug. Annette from Pasadena. We have Dave from Syracuse, New York. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. Yosef is watching. Cynthia from Burbank. We've got Thomas from Danville, California. All of you are tuning in on YouTube. Thank you so much. Over on LinkedIn, I see Rosie, which we really appreciate you tuning in there. We see Jason. And on Facebook, Nick Bratton and John Garaci. Again, thank you all so much for tuning in. It just means the world to us that you are taking your time to watch this when there's so many choices. So thank you so much. I'm going to continue going to those screens. So please keep saying hi to me. I really want to say hi. It's my favorite part of this whole program. Again, as we said earlier, it's also the 40th anniversary of when President Reagan went to Normandy on June 6, 1984, and delivered two different speeches. One really at Pointe-du-Hoc, and then another one on Omaha Beach. And those speeches are still quoted today. So we thought that before we really got into what's happening here tomorrow, we'd share a really quick excerpt from each of those two speeches.
Behind me is a memorial that symbolizes the Ranger daggers that were thrust into the top of these cliffs. And before me are the men who put them there. These are the boys of Pointe-du-Hoc. These are the men who took the cliffs. These are the champions who helped free a continent. These are the heroes who helped end a war.
So tomorrow on June 6th, for us to commemorate the 80th anniversary of D-Day, the day will look very similar to what we're doing today in terms of how the programming will work. It just starts a lot earlier. So tomorrow on June 6th, the live music with the military band kicks off at 9:30 a.m. Pacific, with the ceremonial portion of the day between 10 and 10:30 a.m. Pacific. If there's only 30 minutes you can give us tomorrow, make that the 30 minutes. It should be a very moving tribute for D-Day. We are starting, as long as the weather cooperates and it's not too hazy or fogged in, we're starting with a flyover of World War II planes, an honor guard, a color guard, a rifle guard, again, America's Got Talent's Voices of Service singing. But for me, the most important part of tomorrow and what I'm looking forward to the most is we are so honored and privileged to have 4 World War II veterans with us tomorrow, and they're going to help us lay a wreath on our permanent Gold Star Family Memorial marker, and to help pay a tribute to all those who lost their lives in the war and, of course, after the war. So again, that's 10 to 10:30 a.m. Pacific. From there, we get into 2 panels. The first panel is going to focus on D-Day itself. We have an actual ranger on the panel to talk about the significance of D-Day. We also have a few people from the Reagan administration who went with Ronald Reagan in 1984 to Normandy to talk about why Ronald Reagan went, why he said what he said, his emotions, things like that. So it should be pretty interesting and moving. And then our second panel focuses on President Reagan's Peace Through Strength initiatives back in the 80s and how they still impact us today. And that panel is filled with Reagan administration officials and scholars. So it should be a really great, significant, and substantial forum. And then just like today, at that point, we'll take a short break from going live so we can move our guests over to lunch, but then we'll turn that live stream back on probably around 2 to 3 p.m. to conclude our 2 days of events. And we are concluding our 2 days of events with a fireside chat with Dr. Condoleezza Rice, the former Secretary of State. If you've ever heard her speak, she is just magnificent, and it should be a really great way to end our 2 days. Again, you can watch either day, June 5th or June 6th, or both, live streamed on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/Reagan Foundation, youtube.com/Reagan Foundation. So before we move on to the next section of today's live from, I am going to go back to those screens, which means I have to grab my glasses. Why do I just not leave them on, you wonder? I don't know. Why not? It's too fun this way. Okay, who do we have? Susan Tebbs, thank you for watching. Any other? We have Austin Cowley is watching on LinkedIn. Thank you so much. We really appreciate that. Edward Harrison, greatest president in my lifetime. Thank you all. I'm thinking I've seen everyone. If I've missed you, I'm really sorry. Joe from Florida, God bless my commander-in-chief. Well, thank you for your service. And if I've missed anyone, I'm so sorry, but we'll keep going back. I will be going back one more time, so please do go to that comment box, say hello. I'd love to say hi to you. And so as you know, if you watch these each month, we do always focus on a handful of products from our store. We are going to do that, but I'm also going to share something really special with you as well. So let's start with our store. So as I always tell you, I'm just going to put this down so it doesn't blow away. Simply go to our website, reaganfoundation.org/store. Everything I'm talking about is on that page. If you scroll down just a little bit to the featured product section, the items I'm talking about today are there. But of course, you can search the entire store website, find anything. You can shop by collection, by category. But we wanted to really focus on items that relate to today, June 5th, the 20th anniversary of President Reagan's passing. So I'm sure you've all noticed, I am standing in front of President and Mrs. Reagan's memorial site. When the library was chosen, when this location was chosen for the Reagan Library, President Reagan specifically chose this location for his memorial site. It looks out onto the west, to the Pacific Ocean, to beautiful sunsets and sunrises, to mountain views, to horse trails, and live California oaks, which he loved for trees. So he specifically chose this location. He also chose the inscription that is inscribed in the memorial site, and it is from his dedication remarks at the Reagan Library in November of 1991. And if you can't read it, it reads, "I know in my heart that man is good, that what is right will always eventually triumph, and there is purpose and worth to each and every life." We have created a desk version, if you want to call it, of the inscription portion of the memorial site. It's a nice sort of beautiful tribute to President Reagan, so you can always remember him. So again, this is in our store, reaganfoundation.org/store. In addition, we wanted to talk about something special. Hold on while I grab it. So in our store, and of course on Amazon and in Barnes & Noble, you can buy many books. I am holding the Presidential Diaries. President Reagan, we've talked about it before, President Reagan hand wrote in his diary every single day of his presidency. And when he was shot even, and obviously couldn't write, when he was healthy enough and recuperating, he went back and even then talked about his recollections from those days and from the recovery. And so we have turned that into a book. This is the abridged version. We also sell the unabridged version. And in addition to this book, I'm going to skip for a second to another book we have, of course, An American Life, which is President Reagan's autobiography. And the reason why we want to share the diary and the autobiography with you is, yes, you can purchase that anywhere. However, if you buy it from our store, you can buy just the diary or you can buy just the autobiography. But we also have something incredibly special. When President Reagan used to come up to the Reagan Library, he would sign a handful of Reagan Library book plates whenever he came up. And we have placed some of those book plates in his diaries and in his autobiography. And only here, only us through the Reagan Foundation, through the Reagan Library Museum store, can you purchase one of these absolute treasures, keepsakes, one-of-a-kind books that has his signature in it. So that's what we wanted to point out today, again, in memory of President Reagan, the 20th anniversary of his passing. Just an amazing collectible to have. The third thing I wanted to share with you specifically from our store. So again, these items, the two books, the memorial site plaque, and then this framed item are all on our store, reaganfoundation.org/store. Scroll down just a little bit to the featured products section. You'll see all these items I'm talking about. But this great framed piece includes a picture of Ronald Reagan from his childhood, as an actor, as a cowboy, from his presidency with Mrs. Reagan. It has the year and date of his birth and his passing, our Reagan Library seal, and then one of his quotes from his farewell address, whatever else history may say about me when I'm gone, I hope it will record that I appealed to your best hopes, not your worst fears, to your confidence rather than your doubts. My dream is that you will travel the road ahead with liberty's lamp guiding your steps and opportunity's arm steadying your way. So just a really great item to hang in your office or your home or a gift to your loved one. So again, those items are all on reaganfoundation.org/store. The last item I want to talk to you about is not on our store. You cannot buy it on our property. You cannot buy it from our website. We have just launched a brand new program. It's called Reagan LTD or Reagan Limited. And the only place to find it is reaganltd.com. And every few months or so, we are going to offer one item only that's only available for 30 days. And once that sale is gone, There's no other way to buy that item in that fashion. So we've just launched our first shirt. It's this really gorgeous shirt with an original campaign button on it. And again, the only way to buy it is ReaganLTD.com. So don't miss out, because if you miss out and June passes you by, it's not something you're able to purchase. So those are the items I wanted to share with you from the store. Before I sign off, I will grab my glasses one last time, see if anyone else has said hello. FX, hi from West Virginia, hello. Thank you all for tuning in. I think those are all the new names I see. I see a handful of other people saying hi that have already said hello, so we appreciate that. So I want to thank you all for tuning in. I know we keep jumping around between 9 a.m. and 5 p.m. We had to go at 9 a.m. today because the program's going on at 5. We will return to you next month at 5 p.m. Thank you for tuning in. And again, on the 20th anniversary of President Reagan's passing, on the 80th anniversary of D-Day, let's just take a moment to remember Ronald Reagan and to remember those who fought in World War II, and as Ronald Reagan said, the boys who took the cliffs. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you next month.
I, too, have been described as an undying optimist, always seeing a glass half full when some see it as half empty. And yes, it's true. I always see the sunny side of life. And that's not just because I've been blessed by achieving so many of my dreams. My optimism comes not just from my strong faith in God, but from my strong and enduring faith in man. In my 80 years, I prefer to call that the 41st anniversary of my 39th birthday, I've seen what men can do for each other and do to each other. I've seen war and peace, feast and famine, depression and prosperity, sickness and health. I've seen the depths of suffering and the peaks of triumph. And I know in my heart that man is good, that what is right will always eventually triumph, and that there is purpose and worth to each and every life.